Family means trust, right? I gave my brother money for school, thinking I was helping his future. Weeks later, I opened Instagram, and what I saw shattered everything. I used to believe in family first. That was the hill I stood on, even when it cost me more than I could afford. And let me tell you, it did. It cost me my peace, my savings, and for a while, my sense of self. But the one thing I never expected it to cost me was the truth. I will never forget the way my brother looked at me that night. We were sitting in the garage, both drinking warm sodas because the fridge was busted and we were too broke to care. He had just finished laying out this heartfelt plan, how he wanted to go to college, finally do something real with his life, get a degree in business, maybe even start a nonprofit. Said he was tired of watching mom work double shifts at the diner and dad pick up yard work around town just to keep the lights on. He told me it was time one of us did something meaningful. And somehow, he had made it sound like we were both going to rise from the ashes, like this was our shot, our way out. His name is Lucas, by the way, my younger brother, by 4 years, but most of the time it felt like 10. He always had this charm, that easy smile and way of speaking that made people feel like he actually gave a damn. He used it to his advantage, especially when it came to mom. She bought into every version of his future he sold. I was the one with the job and the car and the rent to pay. But somehow, I was still the one they turned to when Lucas wanted to make a big move. The pressure came fast and hard. Mom cried. Dad grumbled something about opportunities and being a real man. Lucas said all he needed was a boost, just the first semester's tuition and rent. After that, he swore he would handle it on his own. I wanted to say no. I wanted to scream that I was already holding up the walls of this sinking house on my own back. But when Mom asked me if I could do this one thing for the family, I caved, just like I always did. So I said yes. I pulled money out of my savings, emptied out the emergency fund I had built over 4 long years. I picked up 2 extra shifts at the warehouse, gave up the idea of upgrading my beat-up truck, and postponed the move I had been planning to a better apartment. Also, Lucas could have his shot. I remember standing at the bank, watching the transfer go through, telling myself this was an investment. That was the word I clung to, investment. Not donation, not charity. I believed in him. I believed in what he said. And for a while, that belief kept me warm through the coldest nights. Until the day I opened my phone and saw the photo. Lucas, shirtless on a white sand beach, holding a drink the color of blood oranges, flashing a peace sign at the camera like he had just solved world hunger. The caption? Maldives living, baby. No stress, no deadlines. I just sat there, blinking at the screen like it had glitched. But it was real. And it was only the first photo in a long, unbearable scroll. And right then, I knew. I had not invested in anything but a lie. The Maldives. I did not even know Lucas could point it out on a map, let alone afford a trip there. But there he was, barefoot on a private beach, surrounded by crystal clear water and girls in designer bikinis who looked like they belonged in a music video. I scrolled through the rest of the pictures with a kind of numb fascination. It was like watching a movie starring someone who had stolen my brother's face. Him on a jet ski, grinning like he had won the lottery. Him lounging in a cabana with his feet up and a cigar in hand, captioned with, "Earned this." Another one of him raising a cocktail with the words, "No more broke boy blues." My stomach turned. I sat on the edge of my mattress, in my 1-bedroom apartment with its stained carpet and the busted AC that wheezed louder than it cooled. I had missed my friend Josh's wedding last weekend because I could not afford the travel. I had been rationing gas to make it to work and back. And there he was, halfway across the world, living like a man with no worries and definitely no student loan deadlines. I remembered what I had given up. That money was supposed to go toward the moving truck deposit. I had been planning to finally get out of this place and into something decent. A place with a working kitchen sink and enough space to stretch my legs. But Lucas needed help, and I had told myself that was more important. I remembered every single extra hour I had spent lugging pallets in that warehouse while my back screamed and my hands split from the dry air. I remembered waking up at 4:30 to squeeze in a shift at the gas station before heading to my full-time job. I remembered skipping meals some nights just to hold on to enough for his rent. And the worst part? I had been proud of that. I had told myself it meant something. That when he graduated, we would both look back on this as the moment that changed our lives. That I had played a part in something good. But now I just felt like a fool. A tired, broke fools staring at filtered lies through a cracked phone screen. Then I made the mistake of checking the comments. One of them said, "College? I thought you were grinding, not vacationing." Lucas replied, "Told them what they needed to hear. Now I am where I belong." That one hurt more than any punch I had ever taken. I read it over and over. Told them what they needed to hear. I was not them. I was me, his brother, the one who made his plans smaller so Lucas could dream bigger. And he had played me like a sucker. I wish I could say I shut the phone off and walked away. I did not. I stayed up half the night, going deeper into the rabbit hole, stories, posts, tagged photos. It became clear this was not some one-time trip or gifted vacation. He had been planning this for weeks, maybe longer. He had lied, not just to me, but to everyone. Told Mom he was studying hard. Told Dad he was finding his path. Meanwhile, he was living a fantasy on my dime. That night, something inside me shifted. Not rage. Not yet. But something colder. Something heavier. A kind of grief, maybe. And I knew, with absolute certainty, the next time I saw him, I would not be the same brother he left behind. The thing you need to understand is, I did not grow up with much. Our family was the type to cut cereal boxes in half just to stretch breakfast. Birthdays were hand-me-downs wrapped in old newspaper, and vacation meant walking to the park with a sandwich bag full of crackers. So when Lucas came to me talking about college, it felt like a second chance. Not just for him, for all of us. Mom cried when he got accepted, like it meant more than just a degree. Like maybe, finally, one of her sons would break the cycle. And when she asked me, begged me, to help make it happen, I felt like I had no choice. Not because anyone forced me, but because saying no would have made me feel like I failed the whole damn family. I had already been working 2 jobs. Nights in the warehouse, mornings at the gas station. There were days I would drive home so tired I would forget how I got there. I kept a dented thermos of lukewarm coffee in my passenger seat and a pile of old fast food receipts in the glove box. That was my life. But I told myself it was temporary. That once Lucas got through school, we would both breathe easier. That he would help Mom retire early, maybe fix up the old house. That we would laugh about the sacrifices someday. I remember one night in particular. I was outside changing the brake pads on my truck with a flashlight in my mouth and grease all over my forearms. It was raining, just barely. That cold kind of drizzle that soaks through your hoodie. My phone buzzed. It was a message from Lucas. He had just moved into what I thought was his off-campus housing. He sent a blurry photo of a plain-looking apartment and wrote, "Could not have done this without you, bro." I smiled at that message like it meant everything. Like it made the busted knuckles and sore back worth it. What I did not know then was that the photo was probably fake. Staged. A placeholder to keep the lie alive. The next day, I skipped breakfast and wired him another $400 for books. I did not buy myself new work boots when mine started to split at the sole. I did not go on that weekend camping trip with my friends, even though it had been planned for months. I put every spare dollar toward what I thought was his future. Because I believed him. Because I was raised to believe that family means you help each other rise. I did not just give him money. I gave him time. I gave him my shot. I gave him the version of my life that could have been something more. And now? Now I was sitting in a folding chair at the warehouse, eating leftover chili from a stained Tupperware, while he was out there sipping rum on some floating deck in the middle of the ocean. I felt it start to boil. Not just the anger, but the shame. Because no matter how much I wanted to blame him, part of me blamed myself for believing him in the first place. And just when I thought I could not feel any lower, my phone buzzed again. A message from Lucas. No apology. No explanation. Just one sentence. "Hey man, can you spot me another 250? Got hit with an unexpected fee." I stared at the screen for a long, long time. Then I opened my banking app. And what I saw made my blood run cold. My bank account was lighter than it should have been. Way lighter. I blinked at the screen, thinking maybe it had not updated. I refreshed it. Same result. Only $382 left. That did not make sense. I had been careful. Every expense tracked. Every budget calculated down to the last dollar. I knew what was in that account. Or at least, I thought I did. So I scrolled. And there it was. A transfer, made 5 days earlier. $900. Labeled, reimbursement, L. Moore. My heart dropped. That was Lucas's last name. I had never set up a shared transfer with him. Never authorized that withdrawal. But there it was, plain as day. He had accessed my account. I called the bank right away. Got some tired-sounding rep who walked me through the details. The money had been moved via linked credentials. He said the connection had been authorized weeks ago. That was impossible, unless he had done it while borrowing my laptop. I remembered now. 2 months back, Lucas had crashed at my place for a few days. His phone was dead, and he asked to use my computer to check something real quick. I thought nothing of it. Apparently, that was the window he needed. I hung up the phone, my fingers trembling, not from panic, but something sharper. That kind of anger that crawls up your spine and settles into your jaw, tight and heavy. He had not just lied. He had planned this. That message he sent earlier, asking for more money, that was not a plea, it was bait. He was testing the line, seeing how much more he could bleed from me before I caught on. I wanted to drive straight to wherever he was. I wanted to scream in his face, ask him how he could look me in the eye and still smile while stabbing me in the back. But I did not have his address. Because he had never actually moved into that apartment he sent a photo of. So I did the only thing I could think of. I started digging. I went back to the photos, checked geotags, usernames, even scanned through comments. And that is when something new caught my eye. A comment under one of his newer beach photos. From a girl named Kendall. She wrote, "Best vacation ever. So glad you and Jared invited me." Jared? That name hit me like a punch. Jared was one of Lucas's friends from high school. Rich kid, always talking about crypto and flipping shoes. He was the kind of guy who rented Airbnbs just to throw parties and fake being an influencer. And just like that, the puzzle pieces started to slide into place. Lucas had never enrolled in college. There was no business degree, no classes, no apartment. He had taken my money and joined Jared on a luxury beach crawl through the South Pacific. Everything he told me, every sacrifice I had made, it was all based on a story that never existed. And here was the real kicker. Lucas had never even planned to tell me. If I had not found those pictures, if I had not caught the transaction, he would have kept draining me until I had nothing left. I stared at my phone, thumb hovering over the call button, wondering, was I about to confront him? Or was I about to end this for good? I did not call him. I could not. Not yet. I knew myself too well. If I heard his voice, I might have let it slide. He always had a way of sounding sincere, even when he was full of it. That tone that made you think maybe he really was sorry. Maybe he really just messed up this one time. So instead, I sent him a message. Just a few words. Direct and clear. Saw the Maldives photos. You got 10 seconds to explain before I cut you off for good. I saw the typing bubble pop up almost immediately. Then it disappeared. Then it came back. I waited, my fingers tapping against the table in rhythm with my heartbeat. 15 minutes passed before anything came through. Whoa, it's not what it looks like. I laughed out loud. A short, bitter bark of disbelief. That was the best he could do. I replied. So you are not on a beach, sipping mojitos on my dime, after lying about school and stealing from my bank account. It took him a few minutes to respond. Jared covered most of it, man. I only used a bit of your help for flights and clothes. You knew I needed a break. It was a gift, remember? A gift. He had the audacity to call it a gift. I told him no. I gave you that money for tuition, for housing, for your future. You told me this was your chance to change your life. His next message came fast. Dude, I am changing my life. You would not understand. You have always been stuck in that same grind mindset. Working 2 jobs, killing yourself for what? Some apartment with peeling paint and a rusty fridge? Jared showed me what life could be like. He says I have potential. He is helping me start a channel. Real money. Real exposure. My eyes narrowed. I felt something twist in my gut. He kept going. The college thing was never going to work. You know that. I just needed a way to get started. You were already making good money. I figured you could spare it. We are family. There it was. The magic excuse. We are family. The same line I had heard from Mom when she asked if I could help out just this once. The same line Dad used when he handed me bills he could not pay. The same line Lucas himself had used when he promised me I was making an investment in our future. And now, he was using it to justify robbing me blind. I stared at the screen, not even angry anymore. Just hollow. What do you do when someone you love uses that love as a weapon? When every memory you have with them becomes suspect? I could have let loose. I could have typed out every rage-filled thought in my head. Instead, I wrote, this was not a loan. It was not a gift. It was a betrayal. He replied one last time. You are overreacting. You are not the only one with dreams, bro. You just never made room for mine. That was it. I screenshotted everything. Every message. Every transaction. Every photo. And for the first time in my life, I considered doing something I never thought I would. Telling the whole truth to our parents. I sat in the quiet for a long time after that last message. Just staring at the screen like it would suddenly make sense if I looked at it hard enough. But it never did. Lucas had not just lied. He had planned it, carried it out, and when he got caught, he did not even flinch. Just twisted it into some nonsense about me holding him back. Like I was the villain for expecting him to follow through. That is when I opened a new group chat with Mom and Dad. We did not talk much these days. Not unless something needed fixing or someone needed bailing out. But I still had their numbers. And they still thought Lucas was the chosen one. I typed it slowly. I need you both to see something. I gave Lucas money for school. He used it for a luxury vacation. Lied to us all. Here is proof. Then I dropped the screenshots. One by one. His beach photos. The transfer receipts. The messages where he called it a gift. Where he admitted to never enrolling in school. No reply at first. Then Mom responded. Are you sure? This does not sound like him. I felt something in my chest snap. Not break, snap. Because of course she doubted me. I had given up my savings, my time, my sanity. And the second I said something that cast a shadow on her favorite, she closed ranks. I replied, he said it himself. He said I never made room for his dreams. That I was stuck in the grind. That I would not understand. She waited 3 minutes before typing again. He is young. People make mistakes. Maybe you are being too harsh. Then Dad finally chimed in. You should have known better. That was a lot of money to just hand over without paperwork. I stared at that message so long, my screen dimmed. No shock. No anger at Lucas. No support for me. Just excuses and blame. Even now, with all the evidence, they could not admit what he had done. Because Lucas had always been the bright one. The fun one. The one who made them laugh. And I was the reliable one. The workhorse. The fixer. They did not want the fantasy shattered. So I gave them what they wanted. I left the chat. Blocked them both. No dramatic send-off. No final word. Just silence. Because I finally understood something I should have known years ago. In this family, the truth only mattered when it was convenient. And I was done being convenient. But even after cutting them off, one question still haunted me. What would I do if Lucas came back? What if he needed more? Or worse, what if he actually needed help someday? Would I still say yes? Or would I finally let him fall? 1 week passed. No calls. No texts. Just silence. Not from Lucas. Not from my parents. Nothing. I thought that would bring me peace. I thought walking away from all of it, drawing a hard line in the sand, would feel like freedom. But it did not. Not at first. What I felt was guilt. A kind of guilt so deep it crawled under my skin and whispered that maybe I had gone too far. That maybe I should have picked up the phone, at least once, to hear him out again. Maybe he really did not know what he was doing. Maybe Jared had talked him into all of it. Maybe. I nearly believed it. Until a package showed up at my door. No note. No return address. Just a shoebox, sloppily taped shut, dropped off by some third-party courier. I opened it slowly, half expecting it to be some kind of half-hearted apology gift. Maybe a handwritten letter. Maybe my money, returned in cash with a promise to change. But it was not. Inside was a bundle of cheap souvenirs. Shot glasses that said Paradise Found, a wrinkled tank top that read No Work, All Play, and a Polaroid photo sitting on top. Lucas, shirtless, arms slung around 2 girls in swimsuits. Sunglasses pushed up on his head, grinning like a fool. On the back of the photo, in his handwriting, were just 3 words. No hard feelings. That was it. No apology. No explanation. Just a middle finger wrapped in sunshine. I stood in the kitchen holding that picture, my jaw clenched so tight it hurt. I could hear the blood in my ears. I was not even angry anymore. It was past that. This was something worse. Something colder. It was the moment I finally stopped seeing him as my brother. Not just because of the money. Not even because of the lies. But because he looked me in the eye, through that photo, and told me I did not matter. I tossed the box into the dumpster that night. And with it, I let go of the idea that I could ever save him. That was the twist no one talks about when it comes to family. Sometimes, the one you protect becomes the very person you need protection from. I had spent years believing that sacrifice was love. That if I just gave enough, helped enough, stayed quiet long enough, things would get better. But it was not sacrifice. It was self-erasure. and I was finally done disappearing for people who could not see me in the first place. I thought that would be the end of it. No more games. No more messages. Just a clean break. But life rarely lets you walk away without one final test. It was a Thursday, 3 weeks after everything blew up. I was home from work, boots off, collapsed on the couch with a half-eaten sandwich in my lap. The sun had already dipped below the rooftops, casting long orange shadows across the window blinds. Then came the knock. Not a neighbor's knock. Not some friendly, quick tap-tap. No, this one was slow. Heavy. The kind of knock that already knows it does not belong. I stood up, heart already halfway to my throat. When I opened the door, I froze. It was Lucas, but not the Lucas I remembered. His tan had faded. His hair was overgrown, flattened by a hoodie that looked 2 days unwashed. He was holding a duffel bag that sagged like it was mostly empty. He looked lost. He did not say a word at first. Just stood there, shifting on his feet like he could not decide whether to speak or run. I asked him what he wanted. My voice came out flat. Cold. He said he needed a place to crash. That Jared had kicked him out. That things had gone sideways, and he did not have anywhere else to go. I asked where our parents were. He looked down. Said he had not told them. Said he was too ashamed. Said I was the only one he trusted. Those words, the only one he trusted, felt like acid. Because trust is not something you get to ask for after burning every bridge and dancing in the ashes. I looked at him, really looked. The desperation, the hollowed cheeks, the way he would not meet my eyes for more than a second at a time. And I will be honest, something inside me wanted to take him in, to give him one more night, one more shot. Because I remembered being kids, sharing bunk beds and trading comics, and watching storm clouds together like they were movie monsters. But I also remembered the beach photos, the money he stole, the fake apartment, the guilt he never once shouldered. And most of all, I remembered that shoebox. No hard feelings. So I told him the truth. I told him I could not help him, that I wished him well, but this house was no longer open to people who saw my kindness as weakness. He opened his mouth like he wanted to argue, but nothing came out. I watched as his shoulders sagged and his eyes went glassy. Then he turned without a word and walked back down the steps, duffel bag dragging like it weighed 100 pounds. I closed the door, and I did not look back. The silence after he left was different this time. Not peaceful, not victorious, just final. I stood in the hallway for a while, still staring at the doorknob like he might knock again. Like maybe he had changed his mind and would come back with a real apology, a real plan. But he didn't. He just disappeared into the night the same way he had disappeared from responsibility. I sat back down on the couch, picked up my cold sandwich, and stared at it like it had betrayed me too. My whole body felt like it was still holding a fight that never happened. All I could think was how close I came to opening that door and letting him in. Because for a long time, I believed being a good brother meant being available. I believed love meant yes, even when it hurt. But that night taught me something no family dinner, no phone call, no whispered apology ever had. Some people will take your help, your loyalty, your sleepless nights, and turn it into entitlement. Lucas had not just broken my trust. He had broken the version of me that allowed it to happen. I had spent years thinking I was the stable one, the one who would always be there, even if it meant sacrificing myself in the process. But stability should never come at the cost of dignity. That was the lesson I had to learn the hard way. My phone buzzed later that night. A message from Mom. Lucas stopped by, said you turned him away. Why would you do that? He's your brother. I stared at it for a long time before replying. No, he was my responsibility. For too long. Now he is just a grown man facing the results of his own choices. She never responded. And honestly, that said everything. Because some families do not want you to heal. They want you to stay in the role that serves them best. Silent, dependable, and just broken enough to keep saying yes. But I was not that man anymore. The boy who once gave up his savings and dreams to help his little brother had finally stopped bleeding for people who called it love while draining him dry. It has been 6 months. Lucas never came back. I heard through a mutual friend that he bounced around couch to couch for a while, tried launching that YouTube channel with Jared, but it flopped. Turns out charisma alone does not pay rent. No sponsors. No followers, just a bunch of shirtless videos in tropical locations with clickbait titles and no substance. Eventually, Jared dropped him too. No word from my parents either. Not even a holiday message. I think they are still holding out hope that I will cave, come back into the fold, pretend it all never happened. That is how our family always handled things. Ignore the wound, slap a smile over it, and call it tradition. But I have not reached out. Not because I am angry, but because I finally understand the difference between forgiveness and access. I can forgive what Lucas did. I can accept that he is broken in ways I cannot fix. I can even hope, quietly, that someday he figures things out. But that does not mean I have to open my door to him again. It does not mean I have to be his safety net, his savings account, or his doormat. I have learned that setting boundaries is not cruelty. It is survival. People think betrayal is loud, that it comes with slammed doors and shouted arguments. But the worst kind is soft. It wears a familiar face. It calls you bro. It borrows your hoodie and your heart and your future, then tells you it was just a misunderstanding. That kind of betrayal is harder to name, harder to confront, because it wraps itself in love and loyalty. But I see it clearly now. Lucas did not need my help. He needed a mirror, and he smashed it the second it showed him who he really was. As for me, I started that move I had put off. New apartment, different town. I took a job that pays less but gives me my evenings back. I hike now. I read more. I started sleeping through the night again. And most importantly, I stopped apologizing for saying no. That is the real ending here. Not revenge, not redemption, just quiet clarity. If Lucas ever wants to fix things, truly fix them, he knows where to find me. But I am not waiting by the door. I am not keeping the porch light on. Because sometimes, the best way to love someone is to let them face their own consequences. And the best way to love yourself is to walk away when they prove they never saw you as more than a stepping stone. I was not a stepping stone. I was the bridge. And I am done carrying people who only ever came to burn it down.